Your vegetables are struggling while your neighbor's garden explodes with abundance. The soil is depleted, pests attack constantly. You're spending money on chemicals that barely work. But there's something fascinating you need to know. Traditional gardeners were pulling triple the harvest from smaller plots without any of those expensive inputs. They knew something we've completely forgotten. And in this video, I'm Adam Grove, and I'm revealing those exact methods that made old-time gardens practically unstoppable. If you're ready to transform your garden using forgotten wisdom, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the advanced techniques that'll change everything. Think about the vegetable gardens from generations ago. They weren't using chemical fertilizers. They had no access to pesticides. Yet somehow, they produced double or triple what modern gardens deliver today. That's not a coincidence. That's not luck. That's pure knowledge. The difference is this. Ancient gardeners understood nature. They worked alongside it instead of fighting against it. They observed patterns. They followed seasons. They built soil that stayed rich year after year without needing store-bought fertilizers. Today, gardens are failing because we've abandoned these proven principles. We treat soil like dead dirt that needs chemicals pumped into it. We plant everything in isolation, creating weak, vulnerable crops. We ignore the natural pest controls that surround us. We plant on arbitrary calendar dates instead of watching what nature tells us. The result? Exhausted gardeners spending money constantly on products that give mediocre results. Help this channel grow by liking this video right now. Your support means these lost techniques reach more people. The single most important technique from traditional gardening is companion planting. Ancient growers never planted crops alone. They always combined them strategically in the same space. Think about modern garden layouts. Everything's separated. Tomatoes over here, lettuce over there, carrots in another section. Everything lined up in rows. It looks organized, but biologically it's broken. Nature doesn't work in single crop rows. In natural ecosystems, plants grow mixed together. That diversity creates balance and strength. Consider the Three Sisters method that indigenous cultures perfected over thousands of years. Plant corn, beans, and squash together in the same bed. The corn becomes a natural trellis for the beans. The beans pull nitrogen from the air and feed it into the soil, nourishing the corn and squash. The squash spreads across the ground, blocking weeds and retaining moisture. Each plant strengthens the others. When measured carefully, this combination produces 50% more food than planting each separately. Another powerful combination is tomatoes with basil and marigolds. Basil naturally repels the aphids and whiteflies that destroy tomatoes. Marigolds attract beneficial insects, ladybugs, lacewings, parasitic wasps that eat the pests. The tomato grows upward while basil and marigolds occupy the space below. 3 crops where one normally sits, with natural pest defense included. The principle works across many combinations. Bean family plants enrich soil with nitrogen, benefiting leafy greens that need it. Aromatic herbs protect neighboring plants from insects. Deep-rooted plants extract nutrients that shallow-rooted plants cannot. When you understand which plants help each other and which compete, your harvest transforms dramatically. Productivity jumps, problems shrink, your garden becomes less maintenance and more abundance. Share this video with someone growing vegetables. They need to see this. Decorative flowers in traditional gardens weren't there just for looks. They were strategic pest control. Marigolds, cosmos, sunflowers, zinnias, nasturtiums, pansies, these created borders around and within gardens. This plant diversity attracted beneficial insects that ancient gardeners depended on. Ladybugs, lacewings, parasitic wasps, hoverflies, these become your garden's natural security team. When you eliminate these flowers trying to keep gardens clean, you remove the predators that keep pests under control. Then you're forced to use chemicals because you've destroyed the natural balance. But there's more. Certain flowers do specific jobs. Marigolds repel harmful soil nematodes. Nasturtiums attract aphids away from your main crops, acting as a sacrifice plant. Sunflowers draw beneficial birds that eat caterpillars. Each flower serves multiple purposes beyond beauty. In traditional gardens, every square foot worked double or triple duty. Flowers fed beneficial insects while repelling harmful ones. They attracted pollinators. They looked beautiful while functioning as pest barriers. This wasn't accidental, it was designed. When flowers are abundant, you get an army of natural protectors working around the clock. Pests never gain control because they're constantly being hunted. You rarely need to intervene because the ecosystem self-regulates. This is working with nature instead of against it. Drop a comment. What plants are thriving in your space right now? I read every single one. Soil depletion was solved centuries ago. Traditional gardeners rotated what they planted in each location, never repeating the same crop 2 years running in the same spot. This strategy prevents two critical problems. First, it stops specific soil nutrients from becoming exhausted. Different plant families pull different nutrients. Repeating the same crop drains particular elements while leaving others untouched. Rotating prevents this. Second, it breaks pest and disease cycles. Every pest specializes in certain plants. Moving crops confuses them, preventing population buildup. A 4-year rotation plan worked like this. Year 1 planted fruiting crops, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. Year 2 planted root vegetables, carrots, beets, turnips. Year 3 planted leafy crops, lettuce, cabbage, arugula. Year 4 planted legumes, beans, peas, pea shoots. Then the rotation restarted. Between major crops, traditional gardeners planted cover crops called green manure. After harvesting, they'd seed something like field peas or mucuna beans. These grew quickly, covering the soil completely. When flowering began, they'd cut everything down and incorporate it directly into the soil. This created biomass that became fertility. Green manure crops do multiple things simultaneously. Legumes pull nitrogen from the atmosphere, storing it in roots and leaves. Deeper roots extract nutrients from far below, accumulating them in harvestable parts. The biomass improves soil structure. The growth blocks weeds. It's complete fertilization without buying anything. This combination of rotating crops and planting green manure kept soil endlessly renewable. Every season enriched it instead of depleting it. This is regenerative agriculture, working at its simplest and most effective. Water management separated productive gardens from struggling ones. Traditional growers understood how to conserve water while developing stronger plants. Mulch was the foundation, a substantial layer of organic material covering soil. Straw, dried grass, fallen leaves, wood chips, bark. This layer does multiple jobs. It shields soil from direct sun, dramatically reducing evaporation. It moderates soil temperature, keeping it cooler in summer and warmer in winter. As it breaks down, it continuously adds organic matter and improves soil structure. Traditional gardens never showed bare earth. Soil was always covered. This meant they needed much less frequent watering than gardens where soil lies exposed and dries rapidly. The second technique was deep, infrequent watering. Rather than daily shallow sprinkling, they watered thoroughly but less often, soaking deep into the ground. This forced roots to grow deeper, searching for moisture. Deep roots make plants resilient and self-sufficient. Shallow-rooted plants are weak and dependent on constant watering. Shallow daily watering creates a vicious cycle. Roots stay near the surface because water's available there. Surface soil dries quickly in sun. This requires more frequent watering. The cycle traps you in constant maintenance with weak plants that struggle in any stress. Deep, infrequent watering breaks that cycle. Roots drive downward. Plants develop extensive root systems. They become tough. They can survive dry periods. They access more nutrients from deeper soil layers. The combination of mulch preventing evaporation and deep watering forcing root development creates plants that essentially water themselves. Traditional gardens used half the water that modern gardens need because of this simple understanding. The result was healthier plants requiring less intervention. Subscribe to Backyard Crops to see more forgotten growing techniques that work. Ancient gardeners didn't plant by calendar dates. They watched the moon. They observed plants flowering. They noticed birds arriving. They watched weather patterns. They timed everything by natural indicators. Moon phases genuinely affect plant behavior. Leafy crops planted during waxing moon phases sprout faster and grow with more vigor. Root crops planted during waning phases develop stronger, more robust root systems. fruiting crops planted during new moon produce more abundantly. Beyond the moon, they observed local natural signals. When certain trees bloomed, it meant soil temperature reached the right point for specific seeds. When certain birds arrived, it signaled weather had stabilized. When certain plants flowered, they knew moisture levels were right. These indicators were more accurate than calendar dates because they responded to actual local conditions rather than arbitrary schedules. Calendar dates vary year to year. A set date means nothing if weather was late or early, but natural signals automatically adjust. They only appear when conditions are actually suitable. Planting by these signals meant successful germination and strong growth. Planting by calendar often meant failure. Keeping records of these natural signals teaches you when to plant. Note when trees flower. Note when birds return. Note when certain weather patterns emerge. After a few seasons, you understand your specific location's optimal timing better than anyone else on the planet. This is perhaps the most foundational principle. Healthy soil teems with life: earthworms, insects, fungi, beneficial bacteria. Traditional gardeners actively cultivated this life. They never deeply tilled soil because tillage kills worms, destroys structure, and exposes soil organisms to sun. Instead, they cultivated only the top few inches, keeping deeper layers undisturbed. They constantly added organic matter. Every kitchen scrap, every animal manure, every fallen leaf, everything went back to the soil. This wasn't arbitrary composting. It was intentionally feeding the soil ecosystem. Earthworms indicate healthy soil. They burrow, creating channels for air and water. They consume organic matter, transforming it into plant-available nutrients. Traditional gardeners understood this and protected them fiercely, never using anything that might kill them, always feeding them. Soil microorganisms do invisible work. They decompose organic matter into nutrients plants can use. Fungi form networks connecting plant roots together, facilitating nutrient transfer between plants. Bacteria fix nitrogen and process other elements. It's an intricate ecosystem of astonishing complexity. Living soil is loose, crumbly, dark, and smells alive. It drains well but retains moisture. It needs minimal additional fertilization because organisms are constantly releasing nutrients. Living soil is self-sufficient. Dead soil, sterilized by chemicals and tilling, requires constant feeding because no life processes nutrients anymore. The shift from living to dead soil happened when agriculture industrialized. Chemical fertilizers provided immediate nutrient boosts, making soil life seem unnecessary. But this created dependence. Without the biological ecosystem, soil becomes compacted, depleted, increasingly dependent on expensive inputs. Rebuilding living soil is simple. Stop deep tilling. Add organic matter constantly. Never use substances that kill organisms. In a few seasons, the ecosystem reestablishes. Earthworms return, microbes recover, soil quality improves, and suddenly you need far less supplemental fertilizer. Keep watching because the most powerful technique is still coming. Traditional growers never bought seeds annually. They saved from their best plants, selecting for characteristics that mattered most. Year after year, generation after generation, they improved their varieties. During the growing season, they'd mark which plants showed exceptional vigor, highest productivity, best flavor, strongest pest resistance. Only from these champion plants would they collect seeds. This meant each year's genetics got slightly better. Over years and decades, varieties became perfectly adapted to local climate, specific soil conditions, and unique growing environment. A tomato variety that produces brilliantly in one region might fail elsewhere. But saved seeds from successful plants in your specific location create varieties that excel in your exact conditions. No commercial hybrid can match this local adaptation. Shared seeds spread excellent genetics through families and communities. What one gardener perfected spread across neighborhoods in generations. Modern agriculture shifted to hybrid seeds purchased annually. These cannot be saved. They don't reproduce true. This locks gardeners into permanent dependence. Meanwhile, centuries of locally adapted varieties disappear because they're replaced by commercial hybrids. Starting a seed-saving program is straightforward. Mark exceptional plants, let some fruits fully mature, extract, dry, and store seeds properly. Plant them the following season and observe. As you repeat this process, your plants continually improve. This technique produced legendary results. When planting fruiting crops, traditional growers planted exceptionally deep, and beneath the surface, placed concentrated organic matter. For tomatoes specifically, they dig holes 40 to 50 centimeters deep. At the bottom, they'd place fish scraps, heads, bones, organs. They'd cover this with soil, then plant the tomato seedling deeply, burying it up to the first leaves. As the buried fish decomposed slowly over months, it released nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and trace elements in forms plants could readily use. Being deep, it fed the plant throughout the growing season. Planting deep served another purpose. The buried stem developed adventitious roots along its length. A seedling with 10 centimeters of roots would develop 30 to 40 centimeters of total root system. More roots meant stronger plants, deeper nutrient access, more water availability, greater productivity. The results were extraordinary. Fruit size increased dramatically. Production doubled. Plants developed thick stems and lush foliage. The technique works with any protein-rich material that decomposes slowly. Fish scraps, bone scraps, poultry waste, shrimp shells. The principle remains identical. Deep, slow-release fertilization combined with extensive root development. It's simple, highly effective, and requires nothing expensive. Wood ash is rich in potassium, calcium, and micronutrients. Traditional gardeners saved all fireplace ash and spread it across beds. This provided balanced mineral nutrition. Vegetable cooking water, water from boiling potatoes or other vegetables, contains dissolved nutrients. Instead of discarding it, they'd cool it and use it for watering. Instant liquid fertilizer from food waste. Aromatic plants, garlic, onions, mint, rue, planted strategically repelled pests entirely without any poisons. Slightly elevated beds with good drainage prevented fungal diseases and root rot that affected sunken gardens. Perhaps most importantly, traditional gardeners spent time in their gardens daily. They observed constantly, they adjusted, they learned. That attention made all the difference. Every technique shared here follows one core principle: work with nature rather than against it. These aren't complicated approaches, they're not expensive, but they've been abandoned in favor of chemical quick fixes that create dependence and environmental degradation. Diversity creates stability. Living soil creates fertility. Wisdom gained through observation creates resilience. Seasons observed correctly create perfectly timed plantings. Seeds selected for generations create perfect adaptation. This is how ancient gardens produced double or triple the harvest, not through special equipment or expensive chemicals, but through understanding fundamental biological principles and applying them consistently. Everything shared in this video can start immediately. You don't need special tools, you don't need chemicals, you don't need anything except willingness to shift how you think about gardening. Begin with companion planting. Add flowers for beneficial insects. Start rotating crops. Add mulch. Water differently. Plant by natural signs. Protect soil life. Save seeds. Plant deep. Each technique compounds the others. In the next video, I'll show you how to build a completely productive garden using only these traditional methods. Completely chemical-free, fully sustainable, remarkably abundant. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you get that next video, drop a comment about your gardening experiences. Share this with someone who gardens. This is Adam Grove with Backyard Crops. Remember, sometimes the old way is old because it works. That wisdom deserves to be remembered and practiced. Grow well, and I'll see you in the next one.